Hey Mike, has there been any recent sightings that anybody's come into the museum and talked about?
Well, actually we had a lady come in a few days ago. Her sighting wasn't recent though. It was, she said 10 or 12 years ago. But what was particularly interesting about it was right up the hill from the museum. Now, I have talked before about, I believe, time we've spent at the quarry up at the top of the hill here, and how we've recorded some pretty outrageous screams and different vocalizations up there. And also how over just south of us in another little neighborhood on a creek, we actually found a little stick house. I've shown you that, and people there have talked of hearing these anomalous screams in the night. So the lady said that she and her boyfriend one night drove their pickup up the hill, and they drove up to and turned off on the last road prior to the quarry. When you get to the quarry, you're just at a dead end. There's a gate there, and that's it. And you're pretty conspicuously sitting there. But they wanted a little more secrecy because they had some hanky-panky in mind. And so they drove up this last side road and drove to the end of the road and parked on the edge of the quarry, pretty much in the dark and off the road there. And then they got out and got into the back of the pickup, or I guess they had a mat back there or something, and they were kind of playing around and having a good time. And they became aware of somebody approaching. And they stopped and they could hear the brush break and the whole deal, and it sounded like it was a two-footed individual coming closer. And then when they started paying attention, it stopped. And so then they'd talk a little bit or something, and then it would start up again. And so anyway, after a couple of bouts of starting and stopping and what have you, they decided that they were becoming uncomfortable, and that whoever this was, they were insistent upon approaching and yet not acknowledging, because they were actually speaking out, so who's there, this kind of thing. So finally they got so unnerved and uncomfortable about it that they jumped up and straightened themselves out and got back in the pickup and left. But she said that after talking to several friends who had heard about the recordings we made up there and our idea that there might be a Bigfoot up there, she was encouraged to come in and tell us that story. Yeah, and in keeping with that, I mentioned the neighborhood down the street south of us. Well, Ralph and I went out and did some recon the other night, and we went to the end of this little windy road up pretty close to the quarry, to where the other sounds are coming from, and where the stick house is, and the shelter of the blind, or whatever it actually is. And what we do is we just park there and we set up some recording equipment and we listen. We listen to the night sounds, the children of the night. And we were sitting there, and lo and behold, pop! We heard a wood knock. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what that was, but we did perceive what had all the the ramifications of a wood knock. It had a nice, clear, crisp popping sound. It was quite a bit off in the distance. We had to go into the recording and boost it, but nonetheless, it was visible to the ear. Ralph said, "There's a wood knock," and sure enough, we went back and listened later, boosted it, and there it was. Likewise, we were up there another night, and we actually recorded a couple of gunshots, interestingly enough, and they seemed to be coming from north of us, and we were hearing a pop of a gunshot, and then the cry of an animal, which some have said is a dog. I don't know, I'm not so sure. Anyway, there's some kind of an animal cry immediately after the pop. And then about 3 minutes later, the same thing, only the pop is further away. The animal sound, though, is equally about the same distance as the previous. So maybe a gunshot and the dog barking, I don't know. But who's out in the middle of the night, at 2 in the morning, shooting off guns in this area? They're not supposed to be doing that. So poaching is going on, we think, or something. But it's just kind of interesting what you start hearing in the night when you start paying attention, and how few people are really aware of what goes on in the middle of the night around here.